Good morning, fellow neighbors on the internet, or distant neighbors for me, as it were. So, my internet is having some serious problems, and it's going to be a very interesting week, to put it mildly, for me to try to work and for two kids to try to do school from home over the next week is going to be very interesting. So let's start out with a trivia question. Obviously, I do not have working internet, so I'm having to pre-record this and drive about a mile away where I know there's really strong cell signal and attempt to upload the files. So if you are watching this, that means that my mission was successful and that my laptop and SD card and upload via cell phone all work successfully. So cheers to that. So for this non-live, non-stream video, I want to start with a trivia question. And let me back up. So the point of this is that breakdowns are learning opportunities. And I say that often tongue-in-cheek, but in many cases it is very true, because when things are working perfectly, you really don't need to care how they work or what's going on or what the mechanics are. But as soon as something stops working, you're pretty much forced to dive in and figure out, how does this thing work? Why is it broken? It's kind of valuable to me. You start to value things differently, right? So that's what this is. This is a good learning opportunity to better understand how our internet service works. So with that, trivia. What is the maximum response time for an internet ping? So if you were to ping a website, a host, an IP address on the internet, what is the largest response time you would see in milliseconds? What do you think? And I certainly didn't. I would have never asked this question before. I had no idea what the answer was, and I was very, very surprised by the answer. So ponder on that, and we'll get back to that. So my Sunday morning started by just, quickly checking my phone and realizing just nothing worked. Weather, email, website, whatever, it just wasn't working. So I knew it was going to be one of those days. My network is fairly reliable. My internet is very reliable. So it wasn't good. So I realized it was going to be a long day, and I just took it slow and prepared some coffee to start off. So what could be the problem here? Well, I was able to connect from my phone to a server in my office. So that told me that my Wi-Fi internally was working okay. I said, well, maybe my DNS is being flaky. I run a Pi-hole on a Raspberry Pi for my DNS internally. I also host one externally on a DigitalOcean droplet. But I thought, okay, maybe the Pi-hole is acting flaky. It's never had a problem before, but okay, let's just check that out. Log in, it's working fine. I even restart it just in case. Nope, no resolution. Well, as you may know, I have a fancy schmancy, overly complex sonic wall firewall. It's like, well, it's a pretty fancy device. It should be reliable, but I have had some pretty significant problems with it before due to firmware issues. So, okay, let's check that out. It looked fine, but let's reboot it anyway. No resolution, no luck. So then I said, well, okay, everything seems to be working internally. Let me try a ping. And that's when I I was scratching my head like, what is going on here? So I'll let you stare at this for a few seconds and see if you notice anything strange. Did you catch that? At first I was like, well, I'm getting replies. How does that work? If my internet is not working, I can't even pull up a web page. How is a ping getting a response? And then I looked at the time and I said, am I reading that wrong? What? 3356 milliseconds, 3.3 seconds for a ping. My standard ping response time is 6 milliseconds. So my internet service is going from 6 milliseconds to 3,300 milliseconds. That's a problem. So it's really weird. I was really surprised. Like, wow, a ping can last that long? That's actually quite amazing. I would have assumed it would just time out. So very interesting. So we're already learning something. So the answer on how long can a ping last is, it's not the final answer, but we know now it's at least 3 seconds. It's surviving and just happy as a clam. So, of course, well, did you restart your router? Yes. I restarted my Pi-hole. I restarted my Sonic wall. I restarted the ISP router thingy that comes with my fiber optic service. And that is what is called a Mocha coax router. And it's kind of a combined device. It's your typical ISP router, but it has, I guess, a Mocha coax modem or terminal or transceiver or converter. I don't know what it's called, a bridge, who knows. But it takes the fiber optic version of fiber optic service, converts to coax, and that brings in the, I guess it's multimedia service. So that is internet, telephone, video, and whatever else they transmit over the coax or fiber. It converts those into different signals and provides the service. So anyway, I don't understand it. It seems more like a commercial ISP thing. It's not like DOCSIS where, you can go and pick up a DOCSIS router or modem. This is some funky Mocha router. So yes, I restarted everything. So while looking around, like, okay, I'm checking the Sonic wall to see what's going on here. Is anything being blocked? Is there some weird activity? And I see this, and I was like, oh, great. So I'm like, well, something this morning is trying to talk to Hungary, Latvia, Ukraine, Colombia, and Brazil. And I can tell you nothing on my network should be talking to all of those countries within seconds of each other, and over UDP no less. So something's going on. So I look up this IP address. It turns out that it is a Cisco device. It's called an ATA adapter, ATA something. And it is a little Cisco box that is a voice over IP adapter. So you just plug this in your network, and then you can plug in a conventional, the little RJ11 or whatever, the little phone jack to have your conventional handset phone. That is the device that was trying to talk to multiple countries. Let me tell you, I don't think that's legit. So I had to unplug that. I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe something in my network has been compromised and it is flooding traffic everywhere and just choking my internet service. And that is still a possibility. I haven't been able to rule that out completely. And I'll need to do some more tests, like plug this thing back in, see what happens, see if I see a traffic spike. I don't know, but find it very strange that device is doing that. I don't think it was doing that before, because I've had to look for block traffic, because when I need to get something from, say, France, sometimes my firewall had blocked France, so I had to unblock each country by country. So I've been looking for blocked countries, and I haven't been seeing that, and I certainly haven't noticed that on this IP address for this ATA device. So who knows? Who knows? The learning continues. So I said, okay, I've ruled out everything I can. It looks like it's something with the internet service. It doesn't look like it's an internal network issue. So After like 20, 30 minutes on hold, I think over 30 minutes, and then at least 30 minutes on the phone with the tech support person who seemed to be pretty cool. Like as soon as I said that I'm getting over 3-second ping response times, he didn't waste my time and he didn't have me do stupid things. Routine stuff like resetting the router, but he just jumped right into it. So that was very encouraging. So he did basic diagnostics that he could do on his end, and my understanding is those are pretty advanced at ISP grade equipment. And he said he wasn't seeing any issue. Now my router, we restarted my router, it didn't resolve anything. And he even restarted the fiber terminal box. So the fiber optic comes into a big box in my garage, and that box apparently has some electronics and can be rebooted remotely. And so he restarted that, and it actually, I showed improved ping response. So it was bouncing between 6 milliseconds to 150 milliseconds, something like that. So not great, but it at least seemed to kind of work momentarily. But then while I'm on the phone, we're like saying, oh, wow, that was interesting. Well, it spiked back up to 3.5-second ping response. So thankfully, I stayed on the line until that happened, and we ruled that out. Now, I'm running the ISP router, that Mocha router, in bridge mode so that I just have all traffic transfer or pass transparently to my Sonic Wall router firewall. Because of that, he was unable to do diagnostics on that router. We tried to reset it and switch it over to the normal whatever mode, network mode, router mode, but it was taking forever to get an IP address, a WAN IP address. So he just said, well, that thing is 8 years old. It's probably got an issue, so let's just send you a new one. So he just wanted to kind of wrap up after 30 minutes, and like, who knows? So apparently, supposedly, I'm getting a newer model of the router that's being shipped to me. It's going to take 2 to 3 business days, though. So fingers crossed that UPS delivers, and we'll see how long it actually takes. And then once it arrives, I have no idea if that's going to solve the issue. Based on the behavior, I have no confidence. So some things I learned as part of this is when I was initially doing some pings, sometimes I would get a ping response. Here you see 300 milliseconds. But other times I would just get request timeout. And I was like, that's weird. So I found that there is this ping parameter -w. So ping-t says ping continuously, don't stop. Ping-w says increase the timeout. So I set it to 10,000 milliseconds. And so what you'll see here is you'll see a lot of variability. 1776, but then jumps up to 250, 300s, and then it drops to 7, but then it goes way up to 1400, 2300, up to full 85, 75 milliseconds. So that's another clue as to how long a ping can survive. 8.5 seconds. That is just, that's crazy. I mean, that is a persistent ping. So, you just look at this variability, and what I found, it seemed, is that if I had no traffic, no internet-bound traffic on my network, the ping response times would die down and bounce around, 10 to 100 or 10 to 200, and it would just quickly bounce around and fluctuate. But if I did a speed test, if I tried to download a video, if there was internet traffic on my network, the ping response times would ramp up. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe that does kind of lend itself to say that the router has some issue. And when it's starting to see traffic, it just starts to fall apart and bottlenecks like crazy. And I'm debating, could this be a clue that there is malware or something sending DDoS traffic off of my network? Maybe, but if it were that ATA device and I unplugged it, maybe that kind of resolved it, but I'm still seeing this, and it's not constant, right? So, and now that I unplugged that and turned off all other backups, turned off all other server activity, it kind of stays low until I try to do something, then it just throttles. So I'm not thinking it's malware, and a faulty router could very well be the issue. But it is not behaving consistently. It's not like it died completely. That would be easy, right? If smoke puffed out and it just died completely. It's dying. If it is dying, it's dying in a very, very odd way, right? And if something is dying in this way, well, who's to say it's the router? Maybe it's a switch that I have. Switches can die in very unpredictable and strange ways as well. I worked in a help desk where the network card in a network printer suddenly went haywire and just blasted the entire network with random traffic. And it took them a week to figure out what that was. And so they removed the network card from the printer. Problem solved. So network devices can fail in very, very weird ways that are really, really hard to diagnose unless you have advanced tools. So far I'm kind of checking this out. And of course, if you've ever used OneDrive, it does not like intermittent network connectivity. If you're disconnected, it seems to behave fine and says, okay, I can tell I'm disconnected from the network. I'm just going to let you save locally and then I'll catch up and sync. Well, when your internet is going up and down and it's like, great, I have internet, and it tries to connect, and then it loses connection halfway through, and then you try to resave that file, well, it is not a happy camper. So my computer is hanging, it's freezing, it's just like I can barely save files, I can barely open files. So yeah, that is not going well. And thank you to my wife for running the blender nearby in the kitchen so you can hear that. Good times. So what is the answer to the trivia question? What is the maximum ping time that you can get on an internet ping? Well, based on what I found, there is no hard answer to this, but it appears to be that it is configurable, and it's probably configurable at every point along the network. But for any given network, there's likely a timeout configuration, and it seems to be that default timeout in some like Linux distributions or Linux tools is 10 seconds. But in my case, the highest that I was able to record so far as of last night was 8.8 seconds. So 8,859 milliseconds. And that is just quite the journey across the internet. And what's interesting is over here, I see ping times in the 2 to 3 second range, and then I just get a request timeout. So something went above 9 seconds, 10 seconds, presumably that one ping for whatever reason, and it timed out. So I was just amazed by that. Like 300 milliseconds is a pretty sketchy ping time, and above that, you really start to have issues. But 8 seconds is just a gold medal winner as far as I could tell. So another learning opportunity that came out of this, when I told my kids, they're like, well, why can't we like watch YouTube or whatever? I said, well, the internet is down. And they said, oh, you mean the Wi-Fi? I was like, no, the internet service is not working. And my daughter just looked at me with that tilted head look like, what are you talking about, Dad? So I said, kids, gather around. And my daughter does art and stuff like that. So she has these nice fancy markers. So I grabbed a piece of poster board, had her grab her box of fancy, expensive paint markers. I sketched this out, explained along the way, and had her recreate this in prettier looking form. So I explained that the internet is just this interconnected network, and we're using an ISP. Our internet service is from an ISP called Frontier, formerly Verizon Fios, that provides fiber to our house, which goes in the fiber terminal, which then has a coax line to our Mocha router, which then bridges into our Sonic wall, router/firewall, and that gets us into our internal network, part of which is Wi-Fi here. And so I use Unify for my wireless network. So we have our Unify controller and multiple wireless access points. And then we have the office network, which is my network, which is wired for my servers and desktop. And I then later explain that we have internal DNS, and then we have the ISP DNS, and explain what problems that can cause. So my kids now know the difference between internet and Wi-Fi, hopefully. And so when my wife came home from work and said, "Oh, is the Wi-Fi down?" my 10-year-old daughter rolled her eyes and said, "Mom, it's not the Wi-Fi that's down." So that was a fun moment. So now my two daughters are mini home ISP network engineers of sorts, and they can they can probably lecture others if someone says the Wi-Fi is down. So it'll be funny to see how that plays out. But I now have this poster in my office, and it was a fun time. So with that educational opportunity, enjoy your internet, appreciate your sub 8,000 millisecond ping times, and go stream something. And yeah, enjoy it while you can, because I can't, and I'm probably going to be down for at least 3 days until this new router arrives, and we'll see if that fixes. If it doesn't, then boy, it's going to be an extended outage, and I may consider getting a backup service if I can, and dual home on my router. So anyway, have a good one, and talk to you later.
Good.